For those who aren't Anons, this video might concern you because it sounds like doom and gloom. But if you have been following 17 for a while, you will see that the foundation is not only there, but everything is leading to an inevitable destruction of the fiat dollar. So if you don't understand yet, just don't worry because everything is going according to the plan. Even the Galactics have confirmed that everything is on track. For more than a century, the United States has operated under a monetary system that guarantees a gradual erosion of the American standard of living. The Federal Reserve, created in 1913, introduced a model in which every new dollar enters the economy as debt. This single fact, which is rarely taught in schools and rarely discussed in mainstream media, set the stage for a system where prosperity is borrowed, not earned, and where the nation's financial future is chained to the interests of those who issue and control that debt. As debt accumulates, interest payments grow, and inflation becomes unavoidable, the burden falls not on the creators of the system, but on the American people who live within it. The reason this system continues is simple. It benefits the institutions that influence policy. Congress loves the ability to spend without instantly raising taxes. The Federal Reserve loves the permanence of its role as supplier of our money. Large banks love receiving new money first, before inflation has diluted it. And corporations love operating in a framework where asset inflation increases their wealth by increasing the value of their holdings. In this financial matrix, inflation isn't an accident or an unfortunate side effect. It's a feature that keeps the machine running and shifts wealth upward into the hands of those closest to the money spigot. This brings us to a key point. Inflation is not merely rising prices. Inflation is the way that the United States government pays its own debt. You and I spend more money to live in the matrix. By contrast, the dollars you earn become worth less. Your paycheck shrinks while the government's debt obligations lighten ever so infinitesimally. It's a hidden transfer of wealth, not a neutral economic event. Inflation clearly benefits borrowers at the expense of savers, and the largest borrower on earth is the United States government. This structure creates the financial matrix, a system where money is created through debt. Citizens of the U.S. are kept in a perpetual state of financial pressure as the national debt increases daily. Unlike the cinematic matrix, the financial matrix does not hide behind machines or holograms. It operates in broad daylight through monetary policy, taxation, consumer debt, and the normalization of inflation. It conditions people to believe that constant price increases, economic instability, and lifelong debt are simply how the world works, when in reality, they are symptoms of a system engineered around dependency. Most Americans never question this structure because they've never been shown an alternative. Schools teach students how to calculate interest, not how money is created. Media covers inflation as though it is weather, something unpredictable, unavoidable, and external, instead of acknowledging that inflation is the deliberate result of policy choices. And politicians encourage citizens to direct their frustration at each other rather than at the mechanisms that quietly extract wealth from every paycheck, every savings account, and every retirement plan. Replacing this system is possible, but doing so requires confronting the powerful forces that benefit from it. A sovereign money system, where currency is issued by the government directly, without borrowing from the Federal Reserve, is one alternative. This model was used during certain periods of American history, including Lincoln's greenbacks and Kennedy's United States notes. These systems created money without debt and without interest. But such reforms challenge the interests of central banking, which relies on continual lending and continual repayment to maintain relevance and authority. Another option is a commodity-backed currency, where dollars are tied to tangible assets such as gold, silver, or energy. This would limit inflation by preventing unlimited money printing. It would also restrict government spending, forcing politicians to operate within fiscal reality rather than endless borrowing. But that kind of discipline is exactly why such systems are resisted by those in power. Fiat currency enables what commodity-backed currency forbids: unlimited expansion of government debt and influence. A third option is a structured reset, a controlled unwinding of unpayable public debt, combined with the introduction of a new monetary model that does not rely on exponential inflation. Debt jubilees have occurred throughout history, often at times when societies recognized that debt burdens had become mathematically unpayable and socially was destabilizing. But resets are resisted because they threaten institutions that hold the debt and profit from its interest. If the Federal Reserve were abolished, the U.S. would need to replace its monetary system within hours, or markets would panic. But with the right structure in place, the transition can actually strengthen markets rather than collapse them. But this can only be done through a gradual transition. Once the Fed is fired, the U.S. Treasury would become the sole issuer of currency. Think of it as a change in the CEO. The Treasury would likely announce that the current U.S. dollar remains valid and fully usable during a 12 to 18-month transition period. All contracts, credit card balances, mortgages, and bank accounts would remain unaffected. Instead of trying to instantly back all currency with gold, the Treasury could create a parallel currency, such as silver or oil. This would be a great opportunity for those who couldn't afford to buy gold. The U.S. Treasury could then sell gold-backed bonds, which would create immediate confidence and liquidity, serving to stabilize the market. In fact, a gold-backed Treasury bond could cause the global demand to skyrocket, which is why so many have been stockpiling gold and silver. Right now, banks lend out money they don't have, which they deemed as fractional reserves. After replacing the Fed, a hybrid model could be used where existing accounts stay fractional to avoid shock, and new accounts are full reserve-backed one-to-one by assets. This avoids pulling trillions out of circulation, prevents a credit freeze, and slowly weans the banking system onto safer ground. The stock market would stay stable because credit doesn't vanish overnight. There would be a gradual dollar exchange program over 1 to 4 years where people can convert their old dollars into gold-backed dollars at a floating exchange rate. Government debt that's backed by fiat dollars can be refinanced into asset-backed USX bonds. However, an important loophole is that our debt to the Fed isn't backed by any sort of dollars. It's backed by bonds, and it is feasible to default on Fed-held bonds because they're backed only by fiat obligations, not tangible assets. However, doing so would require a controlled restructuring to avoid destabilizing markets. The Treasury could also use multiple temporary tools like buybacks, emergency liquidity windows, and temporary short sale limits that we learned from the Fed to ease them out, but there's going to be a lot of resistance on this one, guys. At the heart of all this lies the same truth. The financial matrix continues because it serves the powerful and obscures its impact on everyday citizens. People feel the stress: rising rents, shrinking savings, heavier taxes, unstable markets. But they aren't shown the architecture that creates it. The system works as long as frustration remains unfocused and blame is misdirected. But once people understand how the cycle operates, the illusion cracks. Awareness is the first step toward change. And as more Americans begin asking the right questions about debt, inflation, monetary sovereignty, and the Federal Reserve's role, the foundation of the financial matrix grows weaker. The United States does not have to remain trapped in a system where prosperity is borrowed, not built. But escaping the financial matrix requires the courage to challenge deeply entrenched interests and the willingness to question assumptions generations have accepted as unavoidable truths. When enough people understand the game, the rules must change. History shows that every financial system has a lifespan. Ours is approaching the point where transformation is not just possible, it is necessary for the survival of the American middle class. So we can break the financial matrix, but the secret to doing it is to not tear it down in one explosive moment. It must be replaced in stages until the old system becomes irrelevant. Just like switching from landlines to smartphones, the old system remained until the new system dominated. So until we drain the swamp, we can't control the money, and until we control the money, we can't fully transition into the golden age of technology and prosperity. Again, guys, I can't say it enough. Have patience, realize what a gargantuan task the Earth Alliance has, and trust the plan. Soon it will become clear that this movie has a very good ending.